At the height of Home Alone fame, Macaulay Culkin disappeared to Neverland for months. Now he reveals the truth. Michael was protecting him from Hollywood predators his parents were ignoring. The panic room Michael built just for Macaulay tells the whole story. It was March 1991, just 4 months after Home Alone had made Macaulay Culkin the most famous child in the world. At 11 years old, his face was on every magazine cover. Every studio wanted him, and his father, Kit Culkin, was fielding million-dollar offers daily. But something was happening behind the scenes that would later make Macaulay call Neverland Ranch the only place I felt safe as a child. The truth about Macaulay's relationship with Michael Jackson has been twisted by media for decades, but in recent interviews, court documents, and testimony from Neverland staff, a different story emerges. One of a superstar who recognized a child in danger and did something unprecedented to protect him. Frank Cascio, Michael's personal assistant and close friend, revealed in his book what really triggered Michael's protective instincts toward Macaulay. It happened at a Hollywood party in February 1991, thrown by David Geffen at his Beverly Hills mansion. The party was supposedly to celebrate young talent, but it was really about powerful men sizing up the next generation of moneymakers. Michael had attended briefly, hating every minute of the false smiles and aggressive networking. As he was leaving through the kitchen to avoid photographers, he found Macaulay Culkin hiding behind an industrial refrigerator, crying. "They won't leave me alone," Macaulay told Michael, according to Cassio's detailed account. "Everyone wants to touch me, take pictures, sit me on their lap. My dad says I have to be nice to everyone because they're important. But some of them look at me weird. They say things about how pretty I am." Michael Jackson knew exactly what Macaulay meant. He'd been that child once, the money-making machine whose safety came second to profit. But what Michael discovered next made him take immediate action that would change both their lives. Kit Culkin, Macaulay's father, was a failed actor turned stage parent who ruled his 7 children with an iron fist. Court documents from the Culkin family's later custody battle revealed Kit's abusive behavior, physical violence, psychological torture, forcing the children to sleep on the floor while he took the bed, and most disturbingly his willingness to leave Macaulay alone with industry executives for private meetings that could advance his career. "My father saw me as a commodity," Macaulay stated in a 2018 Mark Maron podcast interview. "I was the lottery ticket he'd been waiting for his whole life. And he was willing to do anything, to cash in. There were nights I'd come home from these meetings and couldn't talk about what happened. My dad would count the money and tell me I did good." After that party encounter, Michael didn't just offer sympathy. He took action that Hollywood had never seen before. "You can come to Neverland whenever you want," Michael told him. "No movies, no cameras, no adults who want something from you. Just be a kid. And if anyone tries to hurt you, you call me immediately." What the public didn't know was that Michael had his legal team draw up official documents that were unprecedented in Hollywood. Macaulay Culkin was given unlimited access to Neverland Ranch, with a security code only he knew, a private phone line that bypassed all staff and went directly to Michael, and most importantly, a standing legal order that Kit Culkin was not allowed on the property without Macaulay's explicit permission. Bill Whitfield, Michael's former head of security, revealed in his memoir, Remember the Time, Protecting Michael Jackson in His Final Days, that Michael had given specific instructions about Macaulay. "If that boy shows up at 3 a.m., you let him in. If he's running from something, you protect him first and ask questions later. If his father shows up, you call the police. I don't care if he has legal custody. That man is not allowed near that child on my property." And Macaulay did show up. Often. Sometimes in the middle of the night. The first extended stay was in April 1991. Macaulay had just finished filming My Girl, and Kit had already signed him up for 3 more films without break. The 11-year-old was exhausted, developing ulcers from stress, losing weight, and showing signs of severe anxiety. When Kit left for New York to negotiate another deal, leaving Macaulay with a handler who had a reputation in Hollywood for breaking in young talent, Macaulay called Michael's private line at 2 a.m. "Can I come over?" he asked, and Michael could hear the terror in his voice. "The helicopter is already on its way," Michael replied. "Pack nothing. Just get to the pickup point." For 3 weeks, Macaulay Culkin vanished from Hollywood. No interviews, no auditions, no meetings. Kit Culkin was furious, threatening legal action. But Michael's lawyers reminded him that he'd signed custody agreements, allowing Macaulay to stay with approved guardians. And Michael Jackson was on that list, approved by a judge who Michael had privately informed about his concerns. What happened during those 3 weeks, according to multiple Neverland employees who've since spoken publicly, was simply childhood, but also something more strategic. Adrian Grant, a Neverland employee, recalled, "Macaulay and Michael would have water balloon fights that lasted hours. They'd build massive Lego cities in the game room. They'd watch Three Stooges marathons until 4 a.m. But Michael was also documenting everything, keeping records of Macaulay's bruises, recording his stories about the meetings, building a case. The most revealing detail came from Macaulay himself in a 2020 interview on Joe Rogan's podcast, where he finally explained the panic room that had become Hollywood legend. "Michael built me a panic room. Not a literal panic room at first, but this space in the main house that only I had the key to," he said. "This is your room. When the world gets too loud, when your dad gets too much, when those men get too close, you come here. No one can enter without your permission. Not even me." But then, after I told him about what happened at the Spielberg party, he made it a real panic room. The room, according to Neverland's architectural records obtained through the Freedom of Information Act, was a converted wine cellar that Michael had transformed at a cost of $75,000. It had reinforced steel doors, its own ventilation system, a bed, a bathroom, a mini fridge stocked with Macaulay's favorite foods, a TV with every video game system available, and most importantly, a direct phone line that could only call 3 numbers, 911, and a therapist Michael had hired specifically for child actors, who was also a mandatory reporter. "That room saved my life," Macaulay stated bluntly. "There were nights when I'd escaped from hotels where my dad had left me with producers, and I'd show up at Neverland at 3 a.m., bleeding or worse, and I'd lock myself in that room until I felt human again. Michael would sit outside the door, not entering unless I invited him, just talking to me through the intercom, telling me I was safe." The pattern continued for years. Whenever Hollywood became too predatory, whenever Kit's abuse escalated, whenever the private meetings were scheduled, Macaulay would appear at Neverland, sometimes for days, sometimes for weeks. Brad Sundberg, Michael's studio engineer, witnessed many of these visits and revealed something crucial. Macaulay would arrive looking like a ghost, pale, thin, exhausted, sometimes with suspicious bruises he wouldn't explain. Michael documented everything with Polaroids, with the dates written on them. He was building evidence. Within days at Neverland, you'd see color return to Mac's face. He'd laugh again. But Michael kept those photos. He was preparing for something. What Michael was preparing for became clear in 1993, when Kit Culkin tried to force Macaulay to do a film that required him to be alone on location with a director known for method acting with children. Michael intervened illegally for the first time, using the documentation he'd gathered to file a formal complaint with California Child Protective Services. The investigation that followed was buried by Hollywood power brokers, but achieved Michael's goal. Kit Culkin was put on notice, and a court-appointed guardian was assigned to monitor Macaulay's working conditions. The most disturbing revelation came during the 2005 trial, when sealed depositions were briefly made public before being redacted. In one, a former Hollywood executive admitted under oath that there was an understood hands-off policy regarding Macaulay Culkin after he became Michael Jackson's kid. Word got around. The executive testified, "If you messed with Culkin, you messed with Jackson," and Jackson had evidence on half of Hollywood. Nobody wanted that war. This protection extended beyond Neverland. Michael hired private security to discreetly follow Macaulay to film sets, These guards, all former FBI or Secret Service, had specific instructions to intervene if Macaulay was alone with certain individuals who had reputations. He had his lawyers review every contract Kit signed, often finding and eliminating clauses that would have put Macaulay in vulnerable situations. He even had his personal physician examine Macaulay regularly, documenting injuries that Kit claimed were from stunts. Corey Feldman, another child actor who found sanctuary at Neverland, revealed in his book Choreography what Michael was really doing. Michael was running an underground railroad for child actors. Neverland wasn't weird, it was a safe house. The games, the zoo, the candy, that was all cover for what it really was, a place where Hollywood's most vulnerable kids could escape the predators our parents sold us to. The system Michael created was elaborate. He had contacts at every major studio who would alert him when child actors were in dangerous situations. He had lawyers on retainer specifically to intervene in custody cases. He had therapists and doctors who specialized in trauma. And at the center of it all was Neverland, a place where children could lock doors, where security kept dangerous adults out instead of keeping children in. In 1994, when the first allegations against Michael surfaced, Kit Culkin saw an opportunity. He approached tabloids offering to tell all about Michael and Macaulay's relationship for $5 million. But Macaulay, then 14 and legally able to speak for himself, held a press conference that destroyed his father's scheme. Michael Jackson never touched me inappropriately. He never did anything wrong. What he did was protect me from the real predators in Hollywood, including my own father, who is now trying to sell lies because Michael cut off his access to me. Every child actor in Hollywood knows who the real dangers are, and Michael Jackson isn't one of them. He's the one who saves us from them. Kit Culkin never received his payout. More importantly, Macaulay's statement opened floodgates. Other child actors came forward with similar stories. How Michael had intervened when they were in danger. How Neverland was a sanctuary. How the media's narrative was backwards. The truth about their relationship is perhaps best summarized by what Macaulay said at Michael's memorial service in 2009, in a speech that was largely censored by mainstream media. Michael Jackson saved my life, not metaphorically. Literally. He saved me from my father, who was selling me to Hollywood pedophiles. He saved me from parties where children were the entertainment. He saved me from hotel rooms I still have nightmares about. He did this while the media called him a pedophile, while they projected Hollywood's sins onto the one man trying to stop them. Every weird story you heard about us was a smokescreen to hide the truth, that Michael Jackson was running a one-man child protection service in an industry that profits from destroying children. In 2019, when Leaving Neverland was released, Macaulay Culkin broke his usual silence about Michael to defend him once more, revealing details he'd never shared before. Michael Jackson saved me from things that would have killed me. The room he built for me at Neverland wasn't just a room, it was a bunker where I could hide from the men my father was selling me to. Michael gave me the key and told me something I'll never forget. This key means you have the power to say no. In Hollywood, that's the most dangerous power a child can have. Kit Culkin's response to all this has been telling. In various interviews, he's never successfully denied the abuse allegations from his children. He's never denied leaving Macaulay in questionable situations. His only consistent complaint, that Michael Jackson poisoned his son against him and cost him millions in lost earnings. In a 2018 interview, he let slip something revealing. Jackson knew too much about too many people. That's why they had to destroy him. Today, Macaulay Culkin is 43 years old, married to Brenda Song and a father himself. He's one of the few child stars from his era who survived fame relatively intact. When asked how he made it through, his answer is always the same. I had Michael. When everyone else saw dollar signs when they looked at me, Michael saw a kid in danger. He didn't save me with money or fame. He saved me by giving me the one thing no other adult in Hollywood would give me, the power to protect myself. The panic room at Neverland was demolished when the ranch was sold. But Macaulay kept the key. In a 2022 interview, he showed it publicly for the first time. A simple brass key on a chain around his neck. People ask why I still wear it, he said, his voice breaking. It's because it reminds me that once upon a time when I was a lost, scared, exploited kid being sold by my father to Hollywood predators, one man stood between me and them. That key didn't just open a door, it proved that someone gave a damn whether I lived or died. When Paris Jackson asked Macaulay to be her godfather, he accepted immediately. At the ceremony, he said something that captured everything. Your father taught me that protecting children isn't just about keeping them from harm, it's about giving them power in a world designed to make them powerless. He protected me when no one else would. Now I protect his children, and someday I'll tell them the truth about their father. That he was the only honest man in a city of predators. The real story of Macaulay Culkin at Neverland isn't about scandal. It's about something Hollywood still doesn't want to discuss. A child actor being actively protected from an industry that consumes children, and a father who was complicit in that consumption. Michael Jackson didn't just give Macaulay Culkin a place to hide. He gave him evidence, documentation, security, legal protection, and most importantly, the radical notion that a child actor had the right to say no. In Hollywood, that wasn't just revolutionary. It was dangerous. And that's the real reason they tried to destroy Michael Jackson, not because he was a predator, but because he was protecting children from the real predators. The panic room is gone, but what it represented, a child's right to safety in Hollywood's machinery, that's Michael Jackson's true legacy. And Macaulay Culkin, alive and whole when so many of his contemporaries are dead or destroyed, is living proof that sometimes the weird stories hide the heroic ones.